Deep inside the dark web, a criminal believed he was untouchable. Hidden behind layers of encryption, fake identities, and secret servers, he laughed at the idea of ever being caught. What he didn't know was that every click he made, every message he typed, and every late-night login was quietly giving him away. Investigators from around the world were watching him in complete silence, tracking patterns he didn't even know he was creating. And one night, a single tiny mistake cracked open the illusion of his perfect anonymity. This is the moment the hunter became the hunted and the shadows he hid turned against him. Tonight, we dive into a world most people will never see, a world buried beneath the internet, A world where criminals hide behind screens, convinced they're invisible. But in the shadows, a silent war is unfolding. Investigators from across the globe are tracking patterns, decoding encrypted trails, and waiting for that one crucial mistake. This is the story of a man who believed the dark web made him untouchable until the very tools he trusted betrayed him. Get ready, because once you enter this world, nothing is what it seems. The story begins with a silent alert received in a small cybersecurity operations room. Analysts sit behind multiple screens, watching streams of encrypted traffic flow like never-ending rivers of data. They don't know who the criminals are, they don't know where they are located, and they are not meant to. But the analysts have learned something important. On the dark web, every criminal eventually makes a mistake. And that one mistake can be enough to pull an entire network apart. One of the analysts notices strange activity on an established black market forum, operating on the dark web, an unexpected spike in listings and a new vendor offering something unusually dangerous. The vendor claims to be untrackable, using high-level encryption and anonymous servers, and prides himself on having never been caught. But investigators know bravado like this usually means one thing: overconfidence. And overconfidence is where footprints begin. Authorities begin what they call passive observation. They don't attack. They don't reveal themselves, they simply watch. They monitor how the vendor posts, the time patterns of the activity, the type of language used, the spelling, the punctuation, the possible typing rhythm. Even on the dark web, the smallest patterns reveal clues. Investigators know that even the most careful criminals slip up. Maybe they access their hidden marketplace at the same time every night. Maybe they use similar writing styles on multiple forums. Maybe they mention something about their surroundings without noticing. Or maybe the device they're using leaks just a tiny piece of technical information, something as small as the version of their browser. Days pass as the vendor continues to operate confidently, unaware that a silent digital spotlight has been cast upon them. Investigators begin building what they call a digital fingerprint. It doesn't contain a name, a face, or an address. Instead, it contains behavior, language patterns, transaction patterns, timestamps, movement across forums. These elements together form a unique profile as distinctive as any real fingerprint. It tells investigators what time zone the criminal might be in. It tells them what hours they sleep, what hours they wake up, and how long they take to respond to customers. These patterns begin forming a picture like connecting dots on a map that slowly turns into a face. Eventually, one of the vendor's posts slips. A tiny oversight. A simple data point that shouldn't have been there, but it appears. The vendor uploads an image to prove authenticity of a product being sold. But the image metadata hidden inside the file contains a trace of the software used to edit it. Not a name, just a clue. But investigators know exactly what to do with such clues. They run it through databases of editing programs, analyze how often that specific version is used, and connect it to other possible online presences. Slowly, a pattern emerges. Someone using the same editing software, around the same times, appears on another website, not on the dark web, but on a regular internet forum. And on that ordinary forum, the person wasn't very careful. A username appears. A hobby is mentioned. A style of writing matches. A thread from years earlier reveals a city. It's not an address, but it's enough. This is how the chase begins. Investigators then contact international cyber units because criminals rarely stay in one country. Dark web operations do not follow borders, and neither do the investigators. Teams from multiple nations align to track the same digital trail. They share information, compare behavioral patterns, and watch for new activity. Meanwhile, the criminal still believes he is hidden behind layers of anonymity provided by software like Tor and VPNs. But what he never realizes is that anonymity tools aren't the shield he thinks they are. They protect ordinary users, but criminals often misuse them, and misuse always leaves a trail. Patterns emerge not because tools fail, but because people fail. The authorities decide it's time for active investigation. They create what looks like buyer accounts, but they aren't buyers. They're undercover digital operatives. They interact, bargain, and observe. Every response from the criminal becomes a new data point. The way he writes, the delays between messages, the currency he prefers, the timing of logins all combine paint an even clearer picture. At one point, the criminal logs in slightly earlier than usual. Investigators compare this rare activity with regional internet traffic patterns. This narrows down the possibility of his location to a few zones. Still not enough for an arrest, but enough to make progress. Weeks go by. Nothing happens on the surface. But behind digital walls, investigators are mapping servers, monitoring marketplaces, and tracing cryptocurrency activity. Cryptocurrency transactions, once believed to be untraceable, are no longer as anonymous as criminals think. Every transaction appears on a public ledger. Authorities cannot see names, but they see movement, amounts, patterns, and clusters. Over time, these clusters start connecting to real-world exchanges. And every time a criminal converts digital assets to real money, there is a moment where anonymity cracks open just a little. The vendor eventually interacts with a cryptocurrency exchange that requires identity verification for large transfers. Not directly, he uses an intermediary account. But investigators know how laundering patterns look. They can see digital money hop from one wallet to another, trying to confuse the trail. The criminals think this makes them invisible. But the investigators see something the criminals don't. They see the pattern of laundering itself. And when the same pattern appears in more than one place, they find connections that criminals didn't even know they created. Late one night, investigators detect something unusual. The vendor logs in from a slightly different location. He routed his traffic through several nodes, but one of the nodes exposed a region the investigators hadn't seen before. It's just a small hint, but enough to tighten the net. Surveillance teams on the ground in that region begin their work. They watch for suspicious patterns: night workers, late-night computer activity, unusual equipment deliveries, and people who rarely leave their homes but spend long hours behind screens. Every detail helps. One particular apartment draws attention. Lights flicker on at strange hours. The curtains are always closed. Delivery drivers recognize the occupant as someone who avoids interaction. Teams begin monitoring the building's internet traffic, not intruding illegally, but watching public patterns. Something about the timing of the apartment's traffic spikes matches the vendor's activity on the dark web. The investigators dig deeper. They notice that the apartment's internet activity reduces exactly during the hours the vendor goes offline. Correlation is not proof, but it is enough to justify further action. Cyber teams attempt what is known as traffic correlation. They compare the exact timing of encrypted dark web traffic with the timing of internet activity coming from that apartment. When both rise at the same millisecond, then fall at the same millisecond, investigators know they are close. Criminals believe encrypted traffic cannot be linked to a specific location, but correlation techniques tell a different story. It's like seeing two clocks ticking at the same rhythm from different rooms in the house. Eventually, you know they're connected. Meanwhile, the vendor has no idea the walls are closing in. He continues his operations, believing he is invincible. He mocks other criminals who have been caught, claiming they were careless and that he is smarter than law enforcement. But investigators reading his messages know something he doesn't. They're already inches away from unmasking him. Authorities make their move quietly. They obtain legal permissions for a deeper digital inspection. They deploy a specialized cyber investigative tool not to attack the criminal system, but to monitor certain behaviors. When the vendor logs in at the next predictable time, the tool confirms the digital fingerprint matches the activity coming from the apartment. From this moment on, It is no longer a matter of if but when. Still, investigators must wait for the perfect moment. They need the criminal to be actively operating when they move in, so the evidence remains undeniable. Night falls. The digital trail indicates the criminal is online. Local officers, cyber teams, and international surveillance units prepare for coordinated action. The vendor uploads a new listing, completely unaware that this will be his last. Seconds later, the command is given. Officers quietly surround the building. The cyber unit ensures the device remains connected so investigators can capture everything in real time. Moments later, there's a knock on the door. The criminal freezes. For the first time, the illusion of total anonymity shatters. He hesitates before opening the door, but it's already too late. Officers enter. His computer screen displays the dark web marketplace dashboard, still logged in. Investigators secure the device, collect evidence, and confirm that everything matches the digital fingerprint they've built over weeks. The criminal sits speechless, unable to understand how he was tracked. He mutters phrases like, "But I used VP and I hid everything," but the investigators only respond with a simple truth. Anonymity is not as perfect as you think. The arrest is made. The illegal marketplace listing disappears moments later. The entire criminal network that depended on the vendor collapses. Authorities publicly announce the takedown, but what they don't reveal is the long, complex, quiet journey that took place behind screens, across countries, through databases, and between cyber units that never rested until the criminal was unmasked. This story does not end with a single arrest. It ends with a reality check. The dark web may appear like a place where criminals can hide forever, but the truth is far different. Behind every hidden marketplace, every encrypted message, every anonymous username, there are investigators watching, tracing, analyzing, and waiting. Criminals may hide behind screens, but their mistakes, their habits, their patterns, and their digital footprints eventually betray them. The dark web may promise anonymity, but as you've just seen, no one truly disappears. Behind every hidden marketplace and every encrypted message, there are experts watching, listening, and waiting for the smallest slip. One mistake can unravel an entire criminal empire, and this was just one story among thousands. If you want to uncover more secrets from the digital underworld, more stories of criminals unmasked and operations brought to light, make sure you stick around because the next revelation might be even darker than this one.